Hello, Master Duel Central. How's it going, guys? So today I want to do an updated meta tier list. Now, last time we did one was about a month ago, and the meta has changed tremendously since then. We're gonna, trim down the list a little bit. I know last time I got a lot of negative and positive feedback, but basically a lot of people were saying that I put too many decks. I didn't go in depth enough on the decks because I put so many, and it's true. So for this list here, only prevalent decks, only decks that can realistically get to Diamond 1, and I'm mostly ranking them on how easy it's going to be to get to Diamond 1. And on that note, this list here is only for ladder. It's not for best of 3 tournaments or anything like that. This list here is only based on a best of 1 format. So without further ado, let's just get into it. So for our first card here, and I don't think this is going to be surprising anybody, Branded Despia. It's top tier, right? This is basically one of the most oppressive decks in the format right now. Definitely one of the best decks in the game because it's so consistent. It has really strong recursion, really good variety of boss monsters in the extra deck, and that just makes it so oppressive. Every time you play against them, they'll set up the Branded in red so they can get back their shit, make a Chimera, pop your stuff, they get another Mirror Jade effect, banish your stuff. Next turn, they get Branded Fusion again, and they just keep going. Lubellion returns your materials to the deck so you can keep reusing your shit, and they also have really good kill power. They don't struggle at OTKing at all, so just all this coming together makes for a very formidable deck, which is surprising because it also feels like one of the most fair tier 1 decks you could possibly have, in the sense that it doesn't set up an incredible amount of negates that you can't play through. It's not that frustrating to play against, in my opinion. A lot of people say, oh, yawn, Branded and Despia are yawn, but like, I don't know. I find this deck to be like a really cool top tier deck. So honestly, love Branded Despia, and it's definitely top tier. Definitely one of the best decks in the game right now. For the next one, and this is kind of to set, we got to put the best ones first to like set the tone, and that kind of spoils it. But yeah, in my opinion, at the moment, Floowandereeze is tier 1. Now, I put Floowandereeze at tier 2, I think, last time I made a tier list about a month ago, and that was before they had Advent. And now that they have Advent, they are everywhere, and everyone is kind of playing with the idea in mind that they might be facing Floowandereeze. So this deck in particular is affecting what people are playing by a lot. It's very annoying. The deck is even more recursive than Branded Despia. All your monsters recurring from the banish pile constantly. It's insane. If you let the deck play for a couple of turns, it feels like you can never come back from that. There's so much advantage being built over time. It's absolutely degenerate. And also, their best cards are all degenerate. M-Pen is skill drain for monsters in attack position, so if you're playing a deck that uses link monsters, good luck with that. They also have Barrier Statue that's super easy to summon on your own turn. They'll do a full combo and they'll summon a Barrier Statue. You can't do shit about it. You're stuck staring at a Barrier Statue, and you better hope you're playing Lyrillus Tri-Brigade, because if not, you're probably losing the game. And because of that, I think this deck is by far one of the best decks in the game right now. Just the Advent adding so much consistency to this deck, where the main flaw of this deck is really just that it can brick. And that's still the case now, so that is kind of a weird place for a top tier deck, because usually a top tier deck in Yu-Gi-Oh doesn't really break like that. But this deck, I think in a best of 1 format, is just incredibly hard to prepare for, while also being prepared for everything else. So it's not like, you can go to game 2 and just side everything that would destroy Floowandereeze and win from there. You have to build a deck in this game that can play against Floowandereeze, but also play against everything else you're going to play against. And I think that's a reason why you see so much Floowandereeze, and it's so effective in this game here. So in my opinion, Floowandereeze, incredibly oppressive. It's a deck that changes the way you build your deck. A lot of people don't even run Max C because they're just like, I don't want a dead card against Floowandereeze. I don't run Max C much anymore. I kind of just run cards to negate Max C and cards to stop Floowandereeze. Like a good example is Droll and Lockbird. Droll and Lockbird completely stops Max C because they'll draw 1 on Max C and then they can't draw anymore for the rest of the turn. It'll also stop Floowandereeze from doing their combo because they have to add a card to hand to then normal summon again and stuff like that. So just a terrifying deck, honestly. I don't think there's anyone doubting that it's a top tier deck. Maybe some people put it tier 2, But in my opinion, like just from what I've seen and the results it's been getting, I'm pretty confident putting it in tier 1 for a best of 1 format. For the next deck, Zombie World Eldlich. I'm not going to put just Zombie World because realistically no one plays that. Like if you're in Diamond rank and you see Zombie World, you already know they're playing Eldlich cards, a couple of floodgates in there. There can only be one, some shit like that. And you know, it is what it is. I'm not here to tell you what you should or shouldn't play or what's annoying or what isn't. I'm just here to tell you what I think is good. And this deck is great. Right now especially, it's amazing because Zombie World shuts down Floowandereeze completely. The thing is, Zombie World has a secret effect on it that people never read that says that you can't tribute summon monsters other than zombies, and that goes for both players. So your opponent can't tribute summon anything, which kind of shuts off, it just completely shuts off Floowandereeze. So because of that, I think it makes Zombie World Eldlich a lot higher tier than it should be. Not to say it's a bad deck or anything, but I feel like it wouldn't be tier 2 if Floowandereeze wasn't so prevalent right now. It'd probably be more like a tier 3 deck. But the fact that it has such a good matchup against such an oppressive deck makes it really high, and also just in general, it's a really strong deck. Obviously, the Eldlich engine is absolutely incredible, and the Zombie World cards can't be slept on either. Ballardrock is super hard to get rid of. It just keeps coming back, and it's honestly a huge pain in the ass to deal with sometimes if you don't have like Called By or some kind of way to banish it instead of just outing it from the board. So yeah, really oppressive deck. I think it's tier 2 at the moment. If they do hit Floowandereeze, which I hope they do on the next ban list, then we could see this going down a little bit. But at the moment, I mean, I think it's just in a really good position. And it also had, like, it's not like bad against other decks. I'm just saying, like, the fact that it's dominant over Floowandereeze is why I think it's tier 2 at the moment. Now, we've set up the groundwork a little bit here. Elder God tier, top tier, tier 2. There's a reason that I put Baby Ceresaurus and not UCT as the representative of dinos, and it's because my baby dinos, they're tier 3 right now. I still think they're competitive, but the fact that we have Floowandereeze going everywhere definitely hurts them a lot. Last time I did a ban list, I mean a tier list, I said the dinos would be tier 1.5, and I really believe that because honestly, the dino matchup against branded is so good for dinos. It's such an easy matchup for us. Their interruptions do nothing. Chimera doesn't do shit. Dragos, like once you get your Misc effect, they don't do anything. They just don't stop you because most of their stuff is interruptions, like by destruction, by banishing your cards, stuff like that. So once your Misc pops off, you're just good to go. So that's why, like, I was really confident in dinos, and in this matchup in particular, I'm ultra confident in dinos. Dinos whoops, like it wipes the floor with branded Despia. But Floowandereeze is another story. Floowandereeze pretty much destroys Dino when it sets up going first. The barrier statue especially is a huge pain in the ass for us. Even M-Pen, like we need to get rid of M-Pen before we can do anything because M-Pen negates monsters in attack position, and our Link monsters are very important for our combo. Now there are ways to get around this. If they don't set up the barrier statue, you can summon UCT in defense position to flip down the M-Pen. But that's if they didn't also just do another combo to set up like an Omni Negate on your turn, because they get to do that, you know? So it's just been really tough playing dinos recently. Plus we lost Hulk, so we don't have 1-card combos off of Scrap Raptor anymore. So, you know, our whole deck is based on 2-card combos, which it just makes it really rough. So in my opinion, dinos tier 3 is pretty reasonable right now, sadly. I hope to see my boys shine again, and surely soon enough they'll get some new spice that I'll be able to show you guys. But for now, I think this is a tier for them until at least Floowandereeze gets hit on the ban list in some way. Now, for our next one, we have Invoked here. And it's not just Invoked. I'm considering this Dogmatica Shaddoll Invoked. And this is kind of tough. It's weird. I'm going to put it in Rogue. The thing about this is I don't think it got worse or anything. It's just everyone that plays Shaddoll is just playing a Shaddoll pile with branded now. You know, like Dogmatica Shaddoll Invoked is just not a thing you really see anymore. And I think it's just because the Despia engine is more consistent than the Invoked engine. As cool as Invoked is, it's not that consistent. You know, it doesn't have as much main deck support to really like help you get those cards going. And honestly, I think maybe they should print some more Invoked support. Maybe I'm crazy for thinking that. But yeah, the branded stuff is just so consistent that they'd rather run that stuff with their Shaddolls, and I totally get it. They can run a pile deck, 60 pile, just, you know, mill that shit, and sometimes they'll just trigger Comedy in the grave, and they just go get their Elubers, summon that bad boy, right? So it's easy for them. So yeah, for me, honestly, this deck is still really good. You can definitely get to Diamond 1 with it, just like for Dinos, but I think it's more like a rogue tier deck at the moment. Next one here, Adamancipators. Realistically, I think it'd be fair to put you in rogue, actually. I think it'd be fair to put you in rogue. I mean, they can still do super oppressive things when they pop off. And they still have, yeah, there's no way I can put you below rogue when you have friggin' Block Dragon, dude. Block Dragon is so broken. It's such a crazy card. You still have Union Carrier to set it up and search 3 and do all that stuff and pop off like that. Nah, there's no way. No. It's at least rogue for sure. It's so powerful still. Definitely not as oppressive as it was early in the game's life, but holy moly, I can't sleep on Adamancipator. Sorry, Adamancipator players. For the next one though, we have Eldlich. Now Eldlich, that's a tough one. It might actually be just as good as Zombie World Eldlich because the lack of using Zombie World is kind of whack when you have like Floowandereeze going around. It's just at the same time, I don't know if Eldlich cares much about Floowandereeze when they set up just floodgates and a bunch of traps, and they also have an incredible grind game that can kind of like... This is one of the few decks that the grind game can actually match up with the Floowandereeze grind game. So just because the traps keep recurring and all that stuff. So I feel like we actually want to put it in tier 2 just above Zombie. I was considering maybe making like a tier 1.5 for Eldlich. So I guess you could consider it as like 1.5. I think it's a really strong deck right now. But, you know, Zombie World is insanely strong. So I don't know if I want to put it too much higher than Zombie World Eldlich. Because right now Zombie World is just, it's tearing ass, you know. So I'm just going to put it here for now. And, you know, I might be wrong about this, but I don't know. I don't think it's so oppressive that it's tier 1.5. I've actually been doing okay against Eldlich recently, and I'll tell you with what deck I've been beating Eldlich recently. But anyway, for the next one, we have Blue Eyes. Blue Eyes has been playing a version of Blue Eyes with Branded a lot that I've seen. And you know what? I think it's playable. It's pretty good. I don't know if I want to put it in Rogue, but you know, you can get results with it. Realistically, you can get to Diamond 1 with it, and it does some cool things. Also, I guess people play Blue Eyes Jet Dragon in Rocket Link, right? So we could give it that as well. For the next one here, we have Swordsoul. Now, Swordsoul is a tough one. Swordsoul, wow. I feel like it's almost top tier, but it's not top tier, you know? It's like, it's right now it feels pretty fair to play against Swordsoul. I think this might actually be the one that warrants it. I'm going to make a row below. That's tier 1.5. I definitely think it's better than this stuff because, you know, it's such a consistent deck. There's different ways to play it. Right now, I have my version that I like a lot with the one-card combo that turns your tour guide into a Aurorodon and sets up multiple Omni-Negates and stuff. So definitely still a really threatening deck even without Halka Fibrax. A lot of people have been playing like a more, you know, boring variant with like, you know, just running Blackout, running a bunch of Swordsoul monsters, and just basically running it pure with the 10E cards, of course. So, you know, it's just always going to be strong, I think. It's always going to be at least somewhat relevant. It's a very good deck at the moment, just not quite on the level of these two. I think it doesn't have the same consistency, and the board it sets up is not as formidable as it used to be. Oftentimes when I play against Swordsoul, I kind of get this relief because I'm like, oh, I just need to bait out one Omni Negate and one Monster Negate and a Blackout, you know? Most of the time that's what it is, or a Protoss, but I don't play Branded Despia that much. Protoss is also a big reason why it's up here, because Protoss completely counters Branded Despia and basically wins you free games because there's a lot of Branded Despia going around. So in my opinion, that alone will kind of make Swordsoul a 1.5 deck, because I definitely would say you see more Branded Despia than Floowandereeze overall, at least in my experience. That's what I've seen, and it is free double use when you get your Protoss and just call Dark against them. For the next deck here, we have Thunder Dragon, and this is, by the way, I specifically mean like Thunder Dragon branded, and I think it's tier 2. I think it's a very good version of Thunder Dragons and a very good variant of branded. Me personally, my preferred way to play it is with a bit more Despia cards, and you're just using the Thunder Dragon engine to get to Colossus mostly, not really thinking about Titan. But a lot of people play a more, you know, Thunder Dragon focused variant with a bit of a focus on summoning Titan and Colossus. I just don't think Titan is that relevant, but in my opinion, still a tier 2 deck depending on the way you build it. And it's just a good fun deck. It's cool. I definitely think it deserves at least tier 2. It's very solid and very consistent too. For my next one, we have Drytron, and Drytron still does crazy things, but it's become very fragile. So I'm going to put Drytron in Rogue. The combos have just gotten a lot more fragile. It still does crazy things. It'll set up like a Christia and lock your special summoning, do stupid things like that. It can set up that other, I forget the name, but that crazy ritual monster that is basically like VFD. So it still does like insane, annoying things, and I hate this deck. I think I would put it in Rogue. It's very fragile though. Low-key, I don't know if it's even Rogue or if it's just playable. I'm going to put it in playable, actually. I'm going to put it on top of playable. I don't know if it's even Rogue, really. You barely see it because it's very fragile right now. Honestly, I think it's also just people don't really want to play it, but it is playable, and surely you can get to Diamond 1 with it if you really want to put in the grind, put in the time. You can definitely get to it. For our next deck here, Endymion. Now, Endymion is also a pretty fragile deck, but it's also a pretty consistent deck. So I'm going to put Endymion at, I think, at the top, or maybe just around Dino level. I feel like Dinos and Endymion are in pretty similar places where it's like, you know, really, really strong, explosive decks that do a lot, but they also are very interruptible, right? So that's why I'm going to put Endymion right here. It's very similar to Dinos in the sense that you set up insane negates, just a bunch of negates. A lot of monsters from your main deck are your boss monsters, which not every deck has that, where like your boss monsters in your main deck are actually really, really strong. But that's definitely the case for this deck here, similar to Dinos as well. So I think this is a fair spot for it. It can definitely feel like really hopeless when you see them pop off, but then sometimes you'll play against them and like you'll like Ash the Servant and you win the game. So it really depends on their hand, of course, as for most decks, but I think this is pretty much a fair spot to put. I don't think it's tier 2. It's not that consistent, and I think tier 3 is just perfect for it. For the next one, Salamangreats. Now, Salamangreats have been seeing a lot of play recently just because of the new structure deck, and it's a strong deck, right? So, of course, it's gonna see a lot of play if you can play it easily for free. I don't even think it's tier 3. I think it's Rogue, man. I think a lot of people are playing it, so it's getting results. But I think, like, most of the time when I see Salamangreat, I'm like, oh, nice. Oh, yes, I'm playing as Salamangreat. I'm going to be able to win this one easily. For most of my decks, when I see Salamangreat, I just feel a sigh of relief. Though they are scary because if you don't play your cards right, they can definitely just come back next turn and just kill you with access code Talker real quick. You know, they'll OTK your ass real quick if you're not careful. So you can't sleep on Salamangreat. But I do feel like it's more of a rogue deck for sure. I think what it sets up is just not formidable. And even it is like extremely consistent for the most part. But even then, I just don't think Salamangreat is that big of a threat. Still big enough that like you can't sleep on it, of course. You can't sleep on any of these decks. Even Blue Eyes, you realistically actually can't sleep on right now, at least branded version. So can't sleep on it, but I don't think it's like anything above Rogue. Maybe the top of Rogue, though. For the next one, we have Heroes. Now, Heroes, they're always here. You know, they always do what they can. I feel like recently I've been seeing them a lot less, and it might have to do with just Floowandereeze being such an annoying deck, because Heroes, usually you want to go second. Of course, they can set up their floodgates with Plasma and the Dark Angel, and that's really strong. You know, they basically get like Skill Drain and Imperial Order in monster form, which is really strong, really good. But for the most part, what you see with Heroes is people want to kind of break boards and just gotta go for game real quickly on turn 2. And that's been kind of a hard way to play with Floowandereeze being everywhere. Still think it's strong. I'm gonna put it at the right above Adamancipator. It's in Rogue. Like it can absolutely do amazing things. It's a very strong deck, and you absolutely cannot sleep on Heroes. But it's extremely fragile too, like extremely fragile. So I'm gonna put it in Rogue. I think that's a fair spot for it. For the next one, we have Live Twin, Evil Twin, whatever you want to call it. And there's a lot of variants of this deck out there, but I'm just gonna kind of put them all in one bundle. And in my opinion, I think Life Twin is probably right around here, right under Zombie World Eldlich. I think it's in tier 2 for sure. It's a very, very, very strong deck at the moment. It's just, you know, it's one of those decks where you can run so many hand traps, a bunch of one-card starters, a bunch of different ways of playing the deck. Usually, if you're playing a deck that can run a bunch of hand traps safely, you're doing pretty good. It also draws a lot, so you'll be activating hand traps, popping cards, generating card advantage, drawing some cards, which are hand traps, activating them, winning more, and it's just a good loop. It's a good deck to be playing right now. I think especially with like a meta like this one, where like these two decks are very interruptible, you know? It's kind of hard to interrupt, it's pretty hard to interrupt Floowandereeze when they have their friggin' flash spell, but overall both are very interruptible. So a deck that can play a ton of hand traps safely and still, you know, put up a nice board and go for game when it needs to is just a no-brainer, especially since it has a one-card combos, which is kind of like necessary in the game right now if you want to really go off. For the next deck we have here, we have Lyrilusk. Now for Lyrilusk, I'm going like Lyrilusk Tri-Brigade, I guess, but even pure Lyrilusk is pretty good right now because of fucking these birds right here. Floowandereeze is kind of making Lyrilusk seem pretty good at the moment. But I think Lyrilusk, you know, it sets up good monsters. It's got just really strong combos. I think realistically, you can't really put this under tier 2. It's consistent, it's strong, it does good things. The Tri-Brigade cards are broken, obviously. It's never really going to go under tier 2. Well, maybe it will eventually, but at the moment, I don't think it'd be realistic to say this is under tier 2, especially not with these guys going around here. It's pretty nice that, like, if you can't do your Tri-Brigade things, you can just kind of summon some birds and do your thing. And for that matter, we have Tri-Brigade here, so I'm just going to make it clear here. And I'm going to put both of these. I think I'm going to put them... not above. I think that's right under Thunder Branded. Thunder Branded goes right above them. Yeah, so I'm going to put Tri-Brigade and Lyrilusk together since, like, they're pretty much go together for the most part. And, yeah, I think tier 2 is fair for them. Like, the interruption you get and just the advantage you generate from Revolt is insane. And the ability to play under a Barrier Statue with the Lyrilusk is pretty amazing, too. And the boards they set up, of course, are very, very scary. No doubt reminds you of the early game when you see those boards with a bunch of interruptions. It gets pretty scary stuff, you know? And not the best at going second overall, in my opinion. I know a lot of people say Tri-Brigade is really good at going second, but from what I see, oftentimes if I'm going first, like, they just don't get to do much. So I would say tier 2, pretty fair. For my next deck here, we have Phantom Knights. I think Phantom Knights... they're pretty similar again to like a Dino deck where they like have really strong combos. They'll kind of an engine that can do anything, that can set up any monster you want to see them set up. They'll set up a bunch of crazy, scary boss monsters. That's basically the name of the game for them. So for me, Phantom Knights, you know, they got their Torn Greaves or whatever. I forget the name of the card they got back. They got it back to 3. So they're definitely going up a bit. I think... they're still tier 3, though. I don't think they're exactly tier 2 at the moment. They'll like set up a DPE, an Adventure Negate, and some other shit. You know, they're not that amazing, but they are very, very strong. So I think tier 3 is fair for them. Maybe top of tier 3 at the moment. Next deck, we have Sky Strikers. In my opinion, now that we have Widow Anchor at 3, Sky Strikers, with all the hand traps they can run, the fact that they're really, really strong at going second, stronger than most decks, yo, I'm feeling like, I'm actually kind of feeling like a 1.5 for Sky Strikers right now. I honestly feel like Sky Striker is in a really, really good position at the moment. It feels like Sky Striker, the thing about it is, like, it's weird because it's pretty hand dependent, you know, like, but I guess every deck is to an extent, but especially with Sky Strikers. But having 3 Widow Anchor is so huge. Just that extra consistency boost on your main negate. The main thing that's going to make you deal with the biggest threats on the board is at 3 right now. And I think that's a huge deal. It's a huge boost for them. Maybe 1.5 is a little too high, but I think it's relative to what's above it. And that's why, because I honestly think the decks that this struggles with are more the decks under here. But it actually has a really good matchup against these 3 over here. So that's why I'm putting it in 1.5, because these are the decks you'll see the most often. I do think Sky Striker will struggle more against something like Life Twin. It'll struggle more against something like Tri-Brigade or even maybe Dinos, because like we can just activate Misc, right? But overall, I do think just their ability to play against the big boys makes it a really, really scary deck. And whoops, didn't mean to do that. Really, really scary deck in my opinion. Okay, and for my next deck here, and this might be really controversial as a take, so I don't know how you guys are going to feel about it. I've been playing a lot of Kairyu-Shin recently in Diamond. I don't know if you watched my stream today, but we went from Diamond 5 to like the top of Diamond 3 in a couple of hours with a really, really good win rate. This deck gets really fast wins, and it also loses really fast. And that way, it's pretty similar to Floowandereeze, where it's like, if you set up your things really early into the game, before your opponent even starts their turn, they're going to be like, oh yeah, I definitely lost. And they're just going to surrender. So to get fast wins and get to Diamond 1 quickly, I feel like right now this is actually one of the best decks to do it. You know, we're going to get a new season starting really soon, so I highly recommend, if you haven't built this deck, to build it. It literally takes 3 URs in your main deck. It's the Kairyu-Shin. It's just such a free deck. It's so free to play, and it's really, really strong. I think for a best of 1 format especially, your opponent can't really side for it properly, so I think that's really one of the big things that makes it such an impressive deck at the moment. So highly recommend it if you guys haven't already built it. Again, literally only 3 main deck URs. The extra deck does not matter. You don't even need good cards in your extra deck because you barely ever use it. So honestly, man, I'm probably going to be making a deck profile on this once I get to Diamond 1 with it, because I'm very confident I'm going to get there tomorrow, and I'm going to make a deck profile on it on my updated version, because I did modify it quite a bit. But highly, highly, highly recommend this deck here. It's very, very, very powerful. And yeah, it might seem weird to put it above Eldlich, above Zombie World, all this stuff. But again, I'm here to tell you about decks that'll get you to Diamond 1. And I'm telling you, this deck will quickly get you to Diamond 1. It is incredibly oppressive. Not saying you're going to win every game. This deck is brickier than Eldlich. It's brickier than Zombie World Eldlich for sure. But it also wins quicker. Like, even if they don't brick, they won't necessarily win either, because they're not as oppressive as this one. This deck is incredibly oppressive right now. Maybe not as oppressive as Fluanderies, but it's also not as annoying to play as Fluanderies. I don't have the patience to play Fluanderies anymore. I know I made videos on it, but I just don't like playing it anymore. So for me, this is going to be my go-to to get to Diamond 1 quickly. So highly, highly recommend Kairyu-Shin. If you haven't gotten into playing Umi Control, check it out. It's insane. And finally, we have Numerons. Numerons is weird, man. Numerons feels like it's always really, really good, but also complete trash. So I'm just like super confused as to where to put Numerons, because it's so out of the box. It's a going second, activate Kaiju, activate spell, win the game. Like, it's that simple for the most part. Or activate field wipe if your opponent is playing Eldlich or something. It's a really weird deck in that sense, where it just feels like, you know, oftentimes it looks so shit, and then other times it's like, wow, there was nothing I could do. He had Lava Golem, Feather Duster, Numeron Network. What was I supposed to do there? So, I kind of want to put it around here. I'm going to put it right under Kairyu-Shin, specifically because Kairyu-Shin bodies it, like completely bodies it. They can't summon, well, they'll summon 4 Numerons, and then they have to get rid of 3 because of this guy's effect of only being able to have 1 non-water monster on the field. So it's pretty stupid. So I'm gonna put it right under right under Kairyu-Shin in tier 1.5. But definitely a super strong deck. Can't really sleep on Numerons. When your opponent makes you go first, you're always a little worried, like, oh, am I about to get my whole board Kaiju? Are they gonna sphere mode me and then demolish me? Like, you never know what's gonna happen against this deck. So yeah, that's where I'm gonna put that one. Oh, also, sorry, real quick, I forgot to put rockets in here, and yeah. I think Rocket is the best combo deck in the game at the moment. It's incredibly powerful at going first or second. It can play through multiple interruptions and still get to their Boral End and many other incredible boss monsters in the game. It's one of the decks that has like the best plays around hand traps. It's just insane. You'll hand trap this deck like 3 times when they go first, and they're still going, and they're still setting up their Boral End. You're on 3 cards against a friggin' Boral End, and maybe even a Savage if you're unlucky. Like, they have so many good extenders and so many ways to play. It's honestly such a fun deck, and I highly recommend people to try it. A lot of people seem to be scared of it because it has this reputation of being this super huge brain, hard to play deck. It really is not that difficult to play. A lot of it is just getting used to your extenders. You learn your main combo. Usually you want to learn your main combo using like the Red Eyes, the Black Metal Dragon, and you can watch my videos to see that. And from there, like, you'll learn when you want to use your Collapse Serpent, your Wyvern Burster, or when you want to extend maybe in different ways depending on the hand you have. And you just keep like unlocking ways of playing this deck as you play it. It's very, very satisfying because of that, because you're playing through interruptions and kind of figuring out how to set up your board, and it ends up working, and it's a super engaging deck to play, and it's incredibly strong because it can play through so many different interruptions. So without a doubt, we're definitely going to be putting this deck in top tier here. I think it's better than Swordsoul at the moment. Definitely, in my opinion, the best combo deck in the game right now. But anyway, that's it for my tier list in Master Duel, and I hope you guys enjoy it. We're gonna post it on Twitter. It's gonna be their problem now. Twitter link in the description. Make sure to follow me so you can see how people feel about this. But anyway, this is their problem now. This is their problem now, and we don't have to deal with it. Make sure to let me know in the comments what you love and what you hate about this. I mean, you might agree, you might disagree, and that's fine. And let me know also if there's other decks that you think I should have put on the list that I just didn't think of, that you think are more prevalent than I give them credit for, because there's probably some decks I missed that might be, you know, more important than I think or something like that, and might have been worth discussing. So make sure to talk about that in the comments. Let me know. Huge shout out to my UCT tier members, Rapture, Bongerman for 20, That Dude Joey, Right Toast, and Hudaman Me, as well as everyone else supporting in the Mist tier and the Baby tier. Appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you also to the people on Twitch, of course. And that's gonna be it for me. Like, comment, subscribe. Okay, peace.